Hey there friends, welcome back to another Legally Owned America video. I'm of course Paul Glasgow here, the one and only truth pimp, dealing you a vulgar display of logic and reason on a daily basis. Today, I'm dealing you that vulgar display of logic and reason in my backyard because we're in South Louisiana down here and today's just an absolutely beautiful day. You see the blue skies. Temperatures right now in that low 80s, mid 80s. Bearable humidity for those of you that are aware of South Louisiana. Our humidity is usually pretty off the charts. And right now it's very bearable. So I'm coming to you from my backyard and I hope you guys don't mind that. I want to talk about hypocrisy. I do my best to try to be as truthful as I can to you guys. And I do my best to, while I don't mind communicating to you all that I'm giving you my opinion in a lot of cases, it's totally wrapped in facts. In fact, I pride myself on doing tons of research prior to filming so that I can deliver you facts, so that if you ever need to use these videos for your own arguments, you can pick the facts out of them and no one can debunk them because they're all trackable. I'm going to do that today. A lot of crying, a lot of whining that I'm hearing from the left right now over Jimmy Kimmel being not even fired, essentially suspended, temporarily, if you will, for some wrong things that he said. I mean, factually incorrect.
Some new lows over the weekend with the MAGA gang desperately trying to characterize this kid who murdered Charlie Kirk as anything other than one of them and doing everything they can to score political points.
Maybe Jimmy, over the years, doesn't realize that he plays by a different set of rules than the people that he hates on the right who are actually on cable television. Jimmy was on, I almost said is on, Jimmy was on broadcast television. Guys, there was a completely different set of rules regarding which one of those you're on. You can actually use four-letter words, you can drop F-bombs on cable, you can do all those things if you want to. Now, a lot of times the cable providers or the streaming services will frown on that because they know the audience that they're trying to appeal to. That kind of, let's just call it sweet spot, 18 to 45, something like that. In many cases, you're going to have children around. So a lot of these different streaming services and cable companies, although they could drop F-bombs all they want. If you've watched South Park, you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think they counted how many times they said S-H-I-T in one particular episode. So it's definitely a different set of rules. FCC, you can't do that. And the reasons for that is because it's essentially free broadcast. It's the people's airwaves when you're on broadcast television. And to know the difference, your ABC, NBC, CBS, and even Fox, not Fox News, Fox, those are all broadcast free across airways. I'm not saying that there's not a transfer of money somewhere, but no one is paying to be on the airwaves as far as using that. Cable, you're paying somebody. Streaming services, you're paying somebody. If I want my show to be on a streaming service, I have to pay them for it to be on there, and they're paying to utilize that cable, and I'm saying cable to give you a general idea, but that piece of cable that is running to your house, somebody owns that. That's a mechanism to get that feed into your home. Somebody owns that, so somebody has to pay to be on there. Broadcast is broadcast across the airwaves. Yes, you might have been watching Jimmy Kimmel, doubtful, but you might have been watching him on your streaming service or your cable. But nevertheless, if you had rabbit ears, you could watch it on there. That is a free broadcast as far as going across the people's airwaves, the people of America. Those are our airwaves. The FCC regulates those airwaves. Now, FCC has some other things that they're involved in regarding cable, but not the content that you broadcast, whereas they do that on broadcast television, which is what Kimmel was on. Major affiliate station groups refused to carry his show after his controversial on-air comments about Charlie Kirk's killing. This boycott by affiliates made it impossible for ABC to guarantee nationwide late-night distribution, directly threatening the show's viability and Disney's business interests. So the pressure came even before the FCC got involved. The affiliates knew that Jimmy had lied. They knew that Jimmy had said something that he knew was a lie. And based on the strict rules of FCC requirements to be on broadcast television, the affiliates knew that they were going to catch blowback if they continued to air Jimmy Kimmel and face fines of their own because they were allowing content that they knowingly knew could violate the FCC rules that they were obligated to abide by, as well as Jimmy Kimmel. So they made a business decision. I would imagine some of these outlets, and you look at my list that I have right here that I've compiled, some of these outlets likely supported Jimmy Kimmel, liked the guy, liked his show. But they knew from a business standpoint the wrong thing to do was going to be to continue to carry the Jimmy Kimmel Show as they made up lies knowingly. And quick note on the lies that Jimmy makes up. I want you to understand something. When you see somebody come out like that at the beginning of a show and give their quote monologue, this is not off the cuff stuff. And it's not like this is a cheat that they're doing. This is not something new that they're doing. Everybody does it. Your Sean Hannity's, your Andrew Wilkow's, everybody, Glenn Beck, anyone who has a radio show, television show, they have a pre-written monologue. Now they have a loose outline for the rest of the show, but when they first come on the air, it's a monologue that they have written, and they've not written it one time. It's not jotted down on a piece of paper. It's written, it's erased, it's modified, it's approved. So this ain't Jimmy riding up to the show and jotting something down on the palm of his hand with an ink pen. This is something that many people were involved in and approved and allowed Jimmy to say. So if Jimmy's going to try to say this was an off-the-cuff joke, first of all, it was not a joke. It was a serious monologue where he was upset that, quote, MAGA people unfortunately couldn't receive the credit that he wanted because, guess why? It pointed at his people, and he was upset about that. Days prior to Jimmy posting that, we all knew, Jimmy knew, Disney knew, the network knew, everyone knew that this clown who shot Charlie was banging a trans furry, and he was gay, and he was left-leaning. I said it on a video the other day. Just because the rest of his family was MAGA is the stupidest, most shallow excuse for making the wild-ass jump that this shooter himself was actually MAGA. Because most people, especially younger people, are going to drift away from what their parents think. Rebellion, it's common. I'm not making this up. It's a thing. If you've had kids, you know what I'm talking about. If you tell them the sky's blue, they're going to run around telling everybody it's green. So to imply that he had to be MAGA because his parents were is stupid. Your general thought process should automatically be that it probably is the opposite. But Jimmy said it anyway. Jimmy's show was held to a very high standard where they had strict FCC broadcast guidelines because it aired on nationwide broadcast television. This grants access to public airwaves, as I mentioned, but it requires license holders. You have to apply for the license, get the license, and hold the license. It requires them to operate in the, quote, public interest. These rules include prohibitions against obscene, indecent, or deliberately misleading content, such as knowingly distorting the truth about major news events. Do you think it's safe to say that Kimmel knowingly distorted the truth because he knew the facts? Yes, of course he did. And everyone who helped him write that monologue and approved it knew that as well. So this really ain't on just Jimmy. Other people went along with his little plan to lie to the American people using broadcast television, using broadcast waves even, that we own, not Jimmy and not Disney. Kimmel made these comments about Kirk's killer being affiliated with MAGA despite the correct information being known for days prior to that. Again, the FCC's broadcast guidelines specifically restrict, quote, deliberate news distortion, unquote, meaning that broadcasters can't knowingly spread false narratives relating to significant news stories. This can jeopardize their license and violate federal broadcast rules. And in this case, it did. In fact, Disney and ABC will be lucky if they themselves don't get fined over this, because they could very easily prove in many cases that ABC or Disney employees also helped approve that monologue that Jimmy Kimmel lied on. Now, in my opinion, Jimmy Kimmel's ousting really has nothing to do with what he said about Charlie Kirk or Charlie Kirk's killer. Personally, I think this is a business move, a wise business move by Disney and ABC. Why, you ask? Again, I know they like Jimmy. I mean, these are all left-leaning wackos, right? Disney, right? I mean, come on. You know, Jimmy can go out there and say cute little things like this and, you know, never mention Joe Biden in 4 years, but constantly make up lies about Charlie Kirk's killer, Charlie Kirk, Donald Trump, whomever, anybody on the right, fair game. Then they get off the air, they go to their little cocktail parties, they go to their little youngling abuse parties, they go to their little cocaine parties, they go to all the little Hollywood left-leaning parties, and they get to rub elbows with the same type of disgusting scumbag cockroaches. And they go up to Jimmy and go, I heard what you said. That was so cool. I love what you said, Jimmy. I would say Jimmy is kind of like the vessel that all these left-leaning wackos use to get stupid stuff pushed out there on the airwaves. In other words, they all have cover because Jimmy's the only one at risk of losing his job. So they sit here at these little finger bang things, parties that they have, all these little cocktail parties, and they make Jimmy bold. They embolden him. They tell him, man, I love what you said about Trump. Oh, it was super cool what you said, Jimmy. So they say all these things knowing that they can goad Jimmy into saying stupid stuff, and they have nothing at risk. Again, only Jimmy does. So Jimmy gets braver and braver and braver and braver. Now back to the network. The network is at these parties too. The network is taking part in all this tomfoolery, right? This is the network's way to say, Jimmy, you know, call him into the office, Jimmy, man, you put me in a bad place, man. I'm going to have to do something that I really don't want to do because I love you, man. In reality, they're going to use this to push Jimmy out like they did, not bring him back, not because of what he said. Now, they're telling him that. And they're telling him the FCC's on our butts. We got to do something, Jimmy. They're telling him all that because they're homies. They hang out with him. Again, they go to the finger bang parties in Hollywood with him. They don't want to lose his friendship because he's one of them. But in reality, they're not doing this because of what Jimmy said about Kirk's killer. They're doing it because they're losing their ass with Jimmy Kimmel. Just like Stephen Colbert, they're losing their asses. This ain't my opinion. This is an absolute fact. You want to check it out? Google every word I'm about to share with you. Jimmy Kimmel Show, along with the now canceled Colbert Show, we're losing upwards to $30 to $40 million per year. Both of these shows, not combined, individually, we're losing between $30 million and $40 million a year. Again, even if my numbers are a little bit off, they ain't off by much. A minimum of 30 million, a maximum of 40 million is what they were losing. Not making less, losing that much money. They were going in the hole, keeping people like Colbert on and Jimmy Kimmel. How did they get there? Well, Kimmel's audience cratered by more than 70% over the last decade. And more specifically, a key ad demographic, which is the one I mentioned earlier, 18 to 49, has been down more than 72% over that time frame. In fact, in August of 2025, the show averaged just 1.1 million viewers. Friends, I have a YouTube channel with 450,000 followers, and I average more than 1.1 million viewers. Take what they were already losing with the $30 to $40 million, add on top of it these affiliate stations that said they no longer wanted to carry the Kimmel Show. Because remember, these affiliates are paying for this show. These affiliates own the rights to the airwaves. They have those FCC licenses in these specific demographics and these different audiences throughout the country, right? The different states. They're buying that show from ABC. So at least that's some revenue. So you got to figure with all the affiliates who were taking part in purchasing the show, they were still losing $30 to $40 million on Kimmel Show. Now, on top of that, all these affiliates that I showed you are backing out, which means they're no longer going to purchase the show, which means that's that much less money that they're going to be making. So they're about to lose more than $40 million because the little bit of revenue they were generating by these affiliates is going to be going away also. And that's if only those affiliates that so far said they were going to drop the show dropped it. That doesn't mean that all the rest of them wouldn't drop it as well. So that's how we got here with the Jimmy Kimmel Show. So at this point, I've explained to you why the whole outrage by the wackos on the far left is stupid. Here comes the hypocrisy. You ever hear of somebody by the name of Gina Carano? I have. Actually, know Gina Carano. Back when she fought for Elite XC, I covered one of their events up in, I want to say it was Mississippi, maybe a Horseshoe Casino in Mississippi, and that's where I met Gina for the first time for her first fight. Gina Carano also worked for Disney, same employer as Jimmy Kimmel. Gina Carano was fired from the Star Wars spinoff The Mandalorian in February of 2021. Gina's crime was that she reposted messages on X likening criticism of U.S. conservatives to the persecution of Jews during World War II, which Disney labeled as trivializing the Holocaust. Wonder if she talked about the swimming pools. That's for you, JB. She also criticized the fake, now debunked mask mandates. She also criticized vaccine mandates, which have been proven now that the vaccine is harming people who took it, especially super healthy people that shouldn't have taken it in the first place. She even mocked the use of preferred pronouns to support transgenders. How dare she do that? This is how she got in trouble. She said things that were true. She pointed out the mental problems of transgender people. She pointed out the lies regarding COVID. Everything she said was true. Remember, I'm trying to create a timeline here that we can follow. Kimmel worked for Disney. Carano worked for Disney. Kimmel lied about things he knew the facts about. Carano said the truth about things. You see where we're going? Well, just like the strong soul that Gina is, she wasn't going to just fall for it. She sued Disney. She sued them for $15 million, which, ironically, is what Jimmy Kimmel was getting paid at his little show on ABC. Sued for the same dollar amount. Not because of that, but I just find it ironic that she sued and won. Disney wrote her a check for $15 million for wrongful termination. Can Kimmel sue Disney? Nope. Kimmel has no grounds to sue Disney. None. Especially when regulatory or business interests were threatened like they were. The First Amendment protects against government action against free speech, not private companies enforcing their own standards or responding to regulatory pressure. Now, could Kimmel sue for breach of contract, kind of like what Gina did? No, and the reason why I say that, I don't know the contents of his contract with Disney. I can assure you, with all the attorneys in Hollywood, somebody thought to put in there that we can terminate you for any reason if you say something stupid, detrimental to our image, not unlike what Gina did, because Gina's was actually truthful, or if you violate, in this case, he was on broadcast television, Gina was not. They probably wrote in the contract, if you do anything that puts us at any risk for FCC rules or violations, that gives us grounds to terminate. I know it's in his contract. Yes, I haven't seen the contract. I know it's in his contract. So all this crying about Jimmy being terminated, blah, 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 blah. Let me hear what you have to say about Gina Carano or shut the F up. Because these are very similar situations that are very, very different. So I don't want to hear that. In fact, you want to know something else? Hearing all these people coming out crying and whining about Jimmy, either stupid or they know that he broke rules and that they had grounds to let him go, whatever. The left has never been shy about discriminating against people based on the things they say if they don't like what you have to say. You want to know how I know this? Yeah, for those of you who follow this channel will remember that Andrew Bailey, who was the Missouri Attorney General at the time, Johnny B, and myself were prohibited from entering the building at GunCon this year up in Cleveland, Ohio, based on our opinions of things we said about transgender people. That's right. These Sweat Hog sisters that run Aura Venue in Cleveland, Ohio, bunch of fat, tattooed, unbathed cows, decided the morning of the event they were not going to let us attend because they did not agree with our opinions. And let me just say this, and I'm not speaking for Johnny, which I know what Johnny said, and Johnny was 100% right, and Andrew Bailey was 100% right. I'm speaking for myself on this. You know what my comments about the transgender people were? It was get them help, because they have a clinically defined mental illness. And if you continue to affirm and celebrate their mental illness, they will continue at the offing rate that they are currently, because no one is getting help for their mental condition. Stop celebrating them and put your arm around them and try to help them. That was my hate speech that the left didn't like, so they kept me from going to an event that I was invited to. That's the difference between us and them. Jimmy Kimmel was let go because of lies that he said about Charlie Kirk and Charlie Kirk's killer. Charlie Kirk was killed because of truths that he said. Big difference, folks. Guys, if you liked the video, please subscribe. Please tell your friends, family about this channel, Legally Armed America. We try to do our best to put videos out every single day that are fact-filled. And I do my best to make sure that I deliver content to you that is both entertaining but also educational. Don't forget, guys, if you're looking for a book to educate yourself and to educate the idiots out there who can't think for themselves regarding mass shootings, go to damnliars.net. Again, damnliars.net, and get my brand new book, Damn Liars.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.